Alright, for you guys that are wondering, I've been working on my gauge cluster here. I got it laid out for the speedo, or the TAC, the speedo, my oil, water, voltage, and oil pressure. Got it all set up for my gauges, or fuel, I'm sorry, not fuel. Anyway, I got it all set up for the gauges. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run a couple toggle switches too with covers on it. I got one for, that's going to be my master switch. Got one for ignition. I have electric fans in this, so I put one for the override. And then I put one for electric fuel pump to prime it if the car has been sitting a while. Also put holes for turn signals, high beam, low beam, the other turn signal, and an oil light, so if I lose oil pressure I got a light. Now, what I'm going to be doing though is I'm going to be running one of these GM switches in it. These are switches here. You can pick them up online cheap. They're like 20-30 bucks. I use them in Corvettes and some other cars. What I did is I was in a local junkyard and went in there and I actually got a couple of switches from early C4 Corvettes. So I got the switches and then the wiring, of course. And what I'm going to be doing here for wipers, I'm just going to be running one of these generic switches I got off Amazon. It's a Cole-Hurst switch, so it's a good made switch, but I'm going to be running that for the wiper on this thing. I'm going to mount that over here somewhere, and I got a momentary push button switch I'm going to mount for the pisser. And I'm also going to mount my Hobbs meter up here in this area for everything, so that way I can keep track of how many hours are actually on the engine. But what I did is I went through and I pinned out the switch, you know, what part of the switch here connects to what other part. Made myself a nice little chart for how I'm going to connect everything up. So that's going to be, that's the update on my gauge cluster here on how to make a custom one. I should be cleaning up hopefully tonight and painting it. So here's my original gauge cluster. It needs some help. The faces are all gone. It did that, you know, the knobs there, just label maker to try to make it usable for a little bit so I can drive the car and use it for the little bit when I had it on the road, so that way I can go through and check out stuff. So, but I'm going to throw back to the gauge that I'm making. I got these lights off of, I think I got these from Summit. But, you know, oil pressure, it shows a little oil gauge. And, you know, high beam, low beam I got with a light. Of course, turn signals have a little arrow, green arrow in them. So that's what I'll be using for my indication lights. So that's about the update on that. Alright, back to my instrument panel here. What I got is I got the holes for a bunch of different stuff cut. I want to explain to you how I did some of these holes, because some of them aren't regular holes, most of them are. Of course, these holes here I used the hole saw for. I used a drill for that one. Okay, now we'll talk about this guy here. Okay, what I did with this one is I used a small drill bit, drilled it, and then I took a flat file, filed it there, and there, a small like pencil file, and then I used a semi-round file for this. This is for my wiper switch here. My wiper switch has two flat sides and a rounded side. So that's for the wiper. This will be a push button here for the windshield fluid pisser, as you can call it. That'll be the push button for that. Then I got a regular universal wiper switch offline. That's just a 2-position, actually 3-position, on, high, and low, or low and high. So I got that. And then this hole here I got to finish filing, but I'll show you how I did it. This is for a Hobbs meter, or hour meter as it's called. On this car I'm putting one on. I'm just putting it right on the panel. I was going to put it in the glove box, but I decided, you know what, I want to be able to see how many hours are on there. So that way I can keep track of the hours on the engine, since it's a completely new rebuilt engine. So I can keep track of hours, and I'll also be able to keep track of how many miles are on it. But what I did here, okay, since it has to be a square hole, I got to file it to make it a little bit more square. But that's pretty much where it's going to be. What I did is you have this piece there, that piece will drop right down in it. So what I did is I took a drill, see if I can get this cornered here. There we go. is just slide that like that. Okay, I took a drill and I drilled the 4 corners. Okay, as you can see, I took my drill, and then I took a air cutoff wheel and I cut on each of the between the 2 holes. I cut from there to there, there to there, then I cut from there to there, there to there with my cutoff wheel. I got one of these. It's actually a cheap little Harbor Freight cutoff wheel. Okay, nothing special, you know, $20 at Central, Formatic, or Harbor Freight. Okay, and I just took it and I cut from the holes. That's how you can make a square hole if you needed to make a square hole in your panel while doing something. So it's not a big deal to do that. And then, of course, turn signals, just drilled them. And then another little odd hole here is this hole. Okay, since I'm using a GM switch, it's got a little tang, so the headlight switch doesn't turn because the dimmer is built into the switch. I wanted to go with a switch that I could get that I know is a good quality. I don't want to go with something that's cheap. And I love the GM switches. I mean, they work good. They got the rheostat built into them, and you can buy the plugs, so you get a nice plug, and all I got to do is either make a jumper harness or solder it into my pre-existing harness, and I can know I have a good connection. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a jumper harness with a spade connector so I can plug it into the existing harness and have it work. But anyway, back to this hole. What I did is I drilled the main hole with a drill. Then I took a smaller drill, drilled a hole right next to it. Then I took my file and I cut into the hole. And then I just filed the hole square so that way it will actually have a tang to hold it, so when I turn for the dimmer, my switch doesn't rotate. So, and of course I got toggle switches. My one hole didn't, my whole drill moved because I hand drilled these, so I had to ream the hole out a little bit to make it fit. It happens. You won't see it because it's got a covered toggle switch, so you won't see the hole. So, and of course, you know, oil light and all that stuff. So that's pretty much my panel. It's almost all done. I just got to do some final sanding for where the Hobbs meter goes. Clean off all my Sharpie, so if you paint over that, it's going to pop right back through your paint. Best thing to do is to lay everything out. What I did is I took the original gauge cluster, laid it over on top, traced it with a Sharpie, and once I was traced it, then I cut it out. Then I just went through and I gridded it how I wanted everything to be, how it's going to line up, to try to keep everything more or less centered as best as I could. It's not going to be a professionally made one because it is a homemade gauge, but it should come out pretty damn good, I think. I'll show you guys some pictures of it when it's all done and painted and assembled. And again, guys, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff. So, I mean, that way I can see that you guys like them. And thank you for watching.